Greetings, I'm your host AVCF and welcome to the Loading Time Game channel. 3 years ago, Capcom has launched Sweet Home for the Famicom. This game is the father of the Resident Evil franchise since it kickstarted the survival horror genre 7 years before the term was coined when the original Resident Evil was launched for the PlayStation back in 1996. As it never left Japan, Sweet Home remains unknown to Western audiences, so it never had its support recognized. So in today's video I will show what this game is and why it was the root for the Resident Evil franchise. So let's dive in. Back in 1989, Capcom was already considered as one of the world's best game producers, responsible for classics both for the arcades and the console markets, such as Mega Man 2 and Final Fight for example. So Capcom was very requested for all kinds of licensed games, ranging from powerhouses like Disney's DuckTales to fairly obscure movies like Willow.
日本映画の面白男伊丹十三があのスイートホームのファミコン化に成功したぞ。
Still about obscure movies, also in 1989 Capcom has produced and published another movie tie-in, Sweet Home, a horror flick for the Japanese theaters. Even though games launched as movie tie-ins are usually synonym of cheap and rushed productions, the fact is that Sweet Home, the game, was as near as possible to the source material and even managed to become the seed that would reveal Resident Evil years later. Just like in the movie, Sweet Home, the video game, follows the plot about 5 characters that set an expedition to an abandoned and obviously haunted manor to run a documentary about a famous painter. So they get themselves trapped as soon as they get there, and we can see for the first time the inspiration for Resident Evil's door animation. Then we quickly learn that everybody has to cooperate to find an exit. Each character has a key item to get there, so just in the first screen we have to use Asuka's vacuum cleaner to get rid of the shattered glass on the ground. Then we use Taro's camera to register a fresco, and Amy on her hand can unlock some doors just as a certain Jill, master of unlocking Valentine, did in the original Resident Evil.
Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Still about Resident Evil, Kazuo, the game's protagonist, carries a lighter, just like Chris did in the original RE. The lighter will be necessary to burn some large ropes and light dark rooms with the aid of a wax candle. Finally, Akiko is the only one able to cure poisoned characters. Sweet Home's in-game system worked close to the RPGs of the time, with the player able to group up to 3 chars and managing items and actions by browsing in-game menus. We also must switch in and out the chars to get an item required to solve a puzzle, and Sweet Home also has a certain tendency on backtracking, since we must come back constantly to maintain everyone fairly close, as leave someone behind means to put he or she in danger, as the manor is filled with monsters and we must face them in random battles. And yes, the deaths are permanent. Still about danger, the manor itself is hostile, with breakable bridges and grounds that suddenly crumble, and even chandeliers and chairs that can fall over the player, which triggers a primitive version of a quick-time event. There's a permanent tension over the player as each action counts, and despite the fact that everyone mount levels, just like in traditional RPGs, the chars are always vulnerable and can only recover HP points with tonics findable in some rooms. And yeah, just like we would see in Resident Evil games, we must keep in mind that the items are limited and scarce. On the other hand, the in-game narrative unfolds quickly, as several details are hidden in paints and documents, as we have seen already in Resident Evil. Despite all the adventure happening in the manor, Capcom did a remarkable job to overcome the NES limitations and make Sweet Home graphically diverse. The monsters and demons are visually impressive for 8-bit standards, backgrounds are reasonably detailed, and the game runs smoothly. The sound was well designed too, featuring a competent soundtrack that has the right mood and delivers an excellent 8-bit horror feel. All in all, Sweet Home is a hidden Famicom classic. So what do you think? For me, it's clear that if Sweet Home could be launched for the NES back then, today it would be considered one of the Capcom's greatest 8-bit classics, alongside DuckTales or Mega Man 2 for example. Sweet Home has aged well, which we cannot say about the movie, terrible by the way, and it remains playable as soon as you get used by its outdated menu system and its many backtracks. So I recommend you to give it at least a try, since it has an excellent translated ROM. So language barrier is not an issue here. And that's all folks. Thanks for your time and goodbye.
心の力を私にください。